Hey everyone, welcome back to the lineup.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we welcome on Erin Slinde. She was a volleyball player at West Virginia, and she's going to share a little bit about her mental health journey throughout college.
Hey Erin, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to the show here. We're really excited to have you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
So how you doing? How was the drive to Minnesota? How's everything going over there with the virus and everything?
It's pretty good. I mean, it definitely sucks. I wasn't planning on moving back to Minnesota this earlier this way. But I guess it's just the most important part is that I get to spend time with my family, which I didn't figured I would get to, or my friends that are back home before finding a job. So I guess I just have to take advantage of this time to spend time with those people before, the real world gets back on its feet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time. Go ahead, Ben.
So if we're gonna get a little started here too, do you want to explain to us your athletic career up until this point when you graduated WVU?
Yeah. So pretty much, I was super athletic growing up. Decided that volleyball was my true love. So I was fortunate enough to get a full scholarship to West Virginia University, where I played for the last 4 years.
So, what was that like playing at the Big 12 level? Obviously, it comes with a lot of pressures and, a lot of fans, and it's a little bit of a higher level of competition. So, how did that maybe affect your mental health, and talk a little bit about that journey for you?
Yeah. So I actually committed to the University of Iowa when I was only a sophomore in high school because volleyball works a little bit different than, like sports like basketball and football where you try and collect as many offers as possible and then you pick one, right? So volleyball more you have less time. People commit really early. There's people that commit when they're eighth graders to the college they're going to go to in 5 years because you have to you only have so many spots to plan for the future. So it was one of those things where I had committed to Iowa my sophomore year. A year later, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. Like, wasn't somewhere I was comfortable going to. So I decided to decommit and rejoin the recruiting process. By that time, all the other colleges that I had looked at previously had already committed setters, but it worked out where West Virginia had hired a brand new athletic director, brand new coaching staff. So they were looking for kids, anyone that would really could come in and make an impact. And they thought I was one of those players. So obviously I wanted to go somewhere in a Power 5 conference, but I knew that if I went somewhere that was big name, like I didn't want to be another player on the bench. So I actually committed to West Virginia University because I thought it was a school that I had the best chance to make an impact. I wanted to come in and play as a freshman and like really be able to make, as much of an impact as I possibly could rather than going to a really, well-developed program where I was just going to ride the bench. So that I think was something that was kind of shocking for me going into college and going into a Big 12 program was the fact that I thought because it was a program that maybe wasn't as high, like I was just going to have it easy and I thought I was going to just play every second all 4 years and it was going to be picture perfect and I was going to like be the star at the end of it, which obviously it did not happen. I mean, it was really great, but I think that expectation going into it was kind of where I was at, which probably was unrealistic.
Yeah, so how did that impact your mental health coming in from as a senior in high school where you were kind of like the big man on campus to coming into college and kind of finding your way onto the team, onto the squad, and then eventually like making an impact?
Yeah, so I think when I was being recruited, they were really, really happy that they found someone like me that had, was committed to a good college and then decommitted. I was a pretty good recruit going in. So I think that expectation that I felt like the coach and the team had of me, like, put a lot of pressure on me. So, like, when I came in, obviously I graduated high school early. So I came in that spring semester and I hadn't played any competitive team volleyball until like for I think 1 or 2 months, like until I went to college. So I was coming off of really not knowing exactly the physical aspect, like the fitness level I needed to be at, or like really the volleyball shape that I should have been in going into a spring off season where it's just constantly grind and practice. There's no like preseason warm up into it. Like I was like thrown right into the fire. So I really think that was tough. And like when I talk to other people about it, I don't recommend it because it was I was coming in by myself and I had no one to go through it with. It was pretty much just me. Everyone else had already been through season, been through it before. So I think it was kind of hard on my mental health because I feel like I had this expectation that I had to come in and perform at this level and I wasn't in the right shape and it was only me. So I think that really was not the best start for my mental health being a college athlete.
Yeah, for sure. So you talk a little about the expectations and pressures coming in as a freshman. What kind of switch did you make as you went through your college career that kind of allowed you to, get some of that weight off your shoulders and play a little more freely? Obviously, you had a pretty successful career there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my freshman year, the year before I came, so like that semester before I came, my team didn't win a set. Like there's games and then there's like you play 3 out of 5 sets. My team didn't win a set in the Big 12. Like did not win a game, a set at all. So the expectations for the team like wasn't that high. So my freshman year I was able like by the start I was like playing half of the time, but by the end I was playing like all the way around. Like I was Big 12 rookie of the like on the Big 12 rookie team that year. So I mean, I felt pretty good like going into my sophomore year, and then sophomore year kind of I'm not sure how to describe it, but it was kind of like I started off really well and didn't end as well. So it was kind of like the opposite of my freshman year. And then my junior year, I really didn't play at all. Like I started the season and then I was not playing at all. So it was kind of all my 3 seasons leading into my senior year were kind of all different and had a different timeline. So it was really hard to mentally work through that and prepare for like what was coming next because it was different than what I had already done. Like just to go through that roller coaster was I think really tough on my mental health. But I think what really helped me was that, like I said, I committed to West Virginia University solely on the fact that I wanted to put myself in the best position to play. And then when that wasn't satisfying enough, I think it forced me to look into other aspects of my life where I could find value and that I wasn't just being judged on my ability to play volleyball. Obviously, I wanted to work hard. I wanted to do everything I could to like show my team, my teammates, and the coaches that I was committed to being the best player I wanted to be. But I think because I wasn't being satisfied in that level, like it pushed me to do other things outside of volleyball that I don't think I would have done if I would have got that satisfaction. Like I was the president of my SAC like my junior year, which is like crazy. I was a Big 12 SAC representative and I loved it because I felt like I had value there. So I think it was kind of like a blessing in disguise and it opened my eyes up to really like how sometimes a lot of people get caught up in, if I'm not the best one on the team or if I'm not playing my value as an athlete isn't there and I have no value. So I think it really, really helps me just to have that other value, like a place where like I felt valued that wasn't volleyball, which was what I grew up believing. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point you made there. A common theme on this podcast is self-identity after sport, self-identity away from sport, because at the end of the day, we always talk about it. It does end for everybody, whether you're professional or not. That day comes where you have to, hang up your cleats. And I think that's incredible how you found something outside of your sport to identify with, because a lot of athletes have trouble doing that, where they think, okay, my value is solely in my sport. So once I'm not playing or I'm not playing well or this isn't going as planned, I have no value. So I think that's an excellent, point you made, an excellent way you overcame those obstacles by like finding other things you're passionate about and getting into it. I know that you were big for the school's network.
Yeah. So my major was broadcast journalism. So I did a lot of stuff with like within my major and with WVU sports. So I like worked for the video board. I in-game hosted on Mountaineer TV, which is kind of like our school's own smaller network that live streams all of our games. I was able to do that. I was able to start my own web series. So that all happened decided to start all that my junior year. So before my senior season. So I was like a full-time student. I was a student athlete and I was doing all of this stuff on top of that. And so I think honestly that was like probably the best part of my like career because I think at that time I was changing positions, so it was something new for me and it was what our team needed. So it ended up working out really well. So I mean, I think all of that stuff because of my experiences on the team and like kind of what I was going through, like kind of pushed me to like, okay, like my life right now, like, and especially in a year, isn't going to be about volleyball. So I need to start preparing myself in other ways. So when that ends, like I am better, like I'm better because of that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's awesome. We talk a lot about, finding an outlet outside of sport. And I think even further to be able to do that while you're going through the process so that it's not just like hitting you like a wall after you graduate. So I think that's awesome. And kind of moving
Yeah.
forward, my next question is, what was it like opening up to your teammates and coaches? And, why do you think it's so hard for people to do that? And maybe what kind of reaction you got from that?
Yeah, so it actually is really interesting because my freshman year, so all 4 years we've had a sports psychologist. And my first like freshman year, sophomore year, and to my junior year, we really didn't take our meetings with our sports psychologist that seriously. And it was kind of like one of those things like, oh, like, okay, well, we'll go and we'll just, say whatever. And it was hard to really solve team issues that way. But I think going into my senior year, like there was a lot more issues that came or arose with like our team's mental health, like individually and as a team. So I think people really started like to look forward to our team meetings with our sports psychologist. We also hired on like a sports psychologist that was specific for like the athletic department that you could go see individually. So that was also a big help. More people were starting to go see her and talk to her. And then I really think like our team really like looked forward to those sports psychologists like meetings where we could just talk about how each of us were feeling. And it came to a point in the season where our team was not feeling the best mentally and there were some issues that we had to go talk to the coaches about. And I think that was tough for them because it was really the first time that our team had spoken up that something was not going well with our mental health because of what was going on. So I think the coaches didn't really know how to take that information and then use it to their advantage. I think a lot of coaches are used to the way they grew up. So I think it has to do a lot with our generation. Obviously, mental health is this new aspect of sport that I think is still every day like progressing. And so I think like especially my coach thinks a little bit old school where like, if you want to get better, you need to go get extra reps and you need to be, working out more where it's like, a lot of the problems in sport have to do with your mental health and maybe, some players aren't reaching their potential because, it's their mental game that needs work. Maybe it's not their physical game. So I think that was hard as a team to like be a captain and like have to go to the coaches and see them not respond to that. But I think individually, like there came a point where I was not doing well mentally. So I knew that I had to go and open up to my coach about that to see what he was thinking that I could do better to help me. And I think after that, opened up to him about how I was feeling, and he opened up to me about how he was feeling. I think after that, our relationship really was able to like progress and things got better for me because I think it was not only me because I knew that I had put myself on the, all of my stuff like on the table and he was able to put all his, so there was no like there's no like tension. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So I
vulnerability.
think, yeah, yeah. So I think it was interesting because I had to go to him rather than him coming to me, which I think was hard for a lot of girls on our team to like it was obviously hard because they all of their problems they had to go to the coaches instead of it being the coaches had to go to them. So it took a lot of courage for me to like go there and be vulnerable for him, not knowing how he was going to react, whether things were going to get better, things were going to get worse. So I think it worked out for me, but it was hard for my entire team to kind of get to that level, which was hard for me because I was like, why wouldn't you put yourself out there if the chance that it could get better? And they were like, but what if it gets worse? So I think it was kind of hard from that aspect because the coaches didn't really know how to come to us about it and they weren't willing to come to us about it. It was kind of more like on us. Like if we wanted to see change, like we had to go ourselves, which was really scary for some girls on my team. So I think that was kind of my experience with kind of what happened my senior year and that.
Yeah. So, do you think if meaningful education was pushed on maybe the coaches and pushed on the NCAA programs, we would see a major change in like the mental health struggles and stigma attached with what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're reaching a point now where we like the coaches understand like they're doing a lot of more educating than they did before, but it's kind of one of those things where you can tell that to a coach and you could, nail it into their head, but until they fully believe that like they have to put mental health as a priority for their athletes and you can't just be like go get extra reps, go, you need to work out more. Like it isn't all physical unless they believe that okay, my team's if I the way I treat my team is affecting their mental health, so in order to make that better I have to change. It's really hard for coaches to get through. Like I think some of the best coaches like really understand their team and understand what they need and are able to have that really good relationship with their players to be able to communicate with them that's better like best and help them best for their physical needs and their mental needs. And I feel like a lot of coaches aren't used to having to put in that type of work to and like that priority of mental health rather than just the physical because you can't see the mental but you can obviously see the physical.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point there and kind of sum it up perfectly, the whole vulnerability thing. I think one of the reasons people are kind of afraid to talk about it is, they acknowledge that it could get better, but I think there's a lot of risk that people are like, what if it does get worse? Or what if, someone thinks of me a certain way? So, I think you bring up a great point there and it's something that's obviously very relatable to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at me, like I'm a super optimistic person. I'm super outgoing. I can talk just forever, but really weird like looking back at like pictures for example of me playing and thinking like wow, like I look so happy but I remember being so sad. Like so it's kind of hard I think for us because you would never think like wow, like she struggles with mental health because she's always happy. It must not have been that bad where it's like you could look super happy but you could also be feeling things that are totally different and just like bottling up. So I think it's important to know that even if someone may seem okay, but they might not they might be really struggling with something that you don't even know about.
Yeah, definitely. Mental health is blind. You can't see it at all. I know that when I was playing in high school, nobody really knew besides the people that I opened up to. So, and I was never a kid who anybody thought anything was going on with. They were like, "Oh, he's just really intense. He's playing hard. He's happy all the time. He's doing great." But you can never really tell how somebody's doing unless you ask them how they're doing or they open up to you. And people really need to learn how to be vulnerable so they can get the proper help they need.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
So I know you started raising some awareness at West Virginia with mental health awareness games and stuff like that. What kind of reaction did you get from other athletes in the athletic department and maybe people from outside about that?
So when I was on the Big 12, when I was a Big 12 SAC representative, that was really the first year that the NCAA put mental health like on the forefront. Like our everything that we had to do with mental health. Like that was something that they felt was really important. So I wanted to make sure that we were like as West Virginia University, like athletic department, we were reflecting the same goals as the NCAA with mental health. So I know that Oklahoma and Kansas State had done a game where like the teams both wore green for mental health, student athlete mental health awareness. So I thought, it'd be really cool for every team to have a mental health awareness game. So we got wristbands that we handed out at every single sport. We picked one of their home matches or home meets to hand out these mental health awareness bracelets. And so it was really, really cool. And it was kind of interesting to see one of the football games we handed them out. Like we went through the whole tailgate and to kind of see people's reactions. Some people were like, oh, yeah. And some people you could say, kind of were like hesitant, like, oh, like mental health. Like, I think it's still one of those things where people aren't exactly sure how to react about it. They don't know, kind of how to treat it. So it's kind of interesting to see, like, just handing out wristbands and saying, oh, this is for student athlete mental health awareness, kind of seeing their reactions and how they're still, I think, kind of like a stigmatism. I think that's the word, kind of about it and how people see it still and how it's still, people are still afraid to talk about mental health, whether you're a student athlete or whether you're not. So I think it was really interesting.
I think awareness is just a huge thing, whether people react positively or negatively, that's kind of out of our control. But the more it just gets brought up in conversation and the more it's out there in the media and more athletes that come out and share their story, that's only going to help progress as, forward as a society and as, in the athletics community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging what you were doing. I think it's really brave, being able to open up to your coaches, but then, proactively doing something about it and saying, okay, this is the change we need to make on campus. Let's see how I could lead this charge, which, is such a positive in today's society. I think it's starting to become more and more apparent on college campuses. So I just have one last question for you before we wrap it up would be, what advice would you give to student athletes who are going through something like this? And, how could they overcome this?
I think it's like I said, for me, like going through what I went through, I would always say that if you're not okay, like in order to change something, you have to do something about it. So you have to trust that your coaches and your teammates want the very best for you. And one of the best parts about it is that I was able to open up to my teammates. I was able to open up to my coaches. I was able to open up to other athletes about it. And I found that they were thinking and feeling the same way, which was nice for me to know that I wasn't the only one. And I think sometimes when we don't tell people, we think that we're alone in this fight when it comes to mental health. So my advice would be that if you're feeling pressure, you're feeling like things are just not going your way, like feel free to talk to your teammates, talk to your coaches, be vulnerable in the chance that it's probably going to get better and it's going to at least lift stress off of your shoulders, knowing that someone else is going to be there for you and is going to help you through it rather than feeling like you're going through it alone.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It sounds kind of cliche, but there really is, and it's going to get better, and you're not alone. So, well, we really appreciate you coming on, Erin. That was awesome, and we're really happy you shared your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yep, thanks, Erin. And that was Erin Slinde. We really thank Erin for coming on. That was a great input she had. I really appreciated her talk on what she did to actively make a change on campus with the wristbands and everything she was doing with SAC. It was incredible to see.
Yeah, Erin was great. I think she gives some great advice about vulnerability and opening up to teammates and coaches and really putting that in perspective of some of the struggles and also, the opportunity that comes out of it. So that was awesome.
Yep. So stay tuned for next week. Thanks, guys.